So for this, we're basically going to do the same thing that we did the previous couple days, except there's just I'm showing you a couple weird little twists that can pop up. So first off, let's look at step one. So step one, we got to group the x terms and the y terms. So here's an x term. Oh my god, there's no other x term. So here's what we do. We just keep it this way. We have the x terms, we have the y terms. We'll deal with it later. And essentially what it means is if there's only the x squared terms right here, all of these things, you only have to do it for the y stuff. It's just going to be x squared in the end. That's the one that's going to stay. So let's look at step two. I mean, step one's pretty much already done for us. Step two. So for the x and y coefficients, guess what? There is no x, so don't have to worry about this. Just going to worry about the y coefficient. For the y coefficient, we're going to divide it by 2, so negative 12 divided by 2, and then we're going to square that. So negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6 squared is 36. So rewriting this, we're going to have x squared, that's the only x term, plus y squared minus 12y plus 36, and then we have the original plus 20 equals 0. Now remember, since we added this plus 36 to the left side, in order to keep it an equation, we also have to add it to the right side. So that's going to go over there. And then, cool, done with step two. And actually, we're done with step three, because we just added it to the left and the right side. So moving on to step four, we're going to get rid of this plus 20, and we want to move it over to the right side. So the way you're going to do that is you're just going to subtract 20 from both sides. What we're left with is still just that x squared. And then we have plus y squared minus 12y plus 36. These plus 20s cancel out. The 0 obviously doesn't really matter. And this equals 36 minus 20 gives you 16. So check on step 4. Now step 5. We're going to factor the x and y trinomials into perfect squares. But again, twist. We don't really have a trinomial here. But we have a monomial, and it is a perfect square. So that's perfect. We can just leave the x squared. That one, not going to touch it. It's just x squared, and we'll deal with that in a second. Now, the y stuff, it's going to be plus y something or other squared. Now, the something or other, remember, you look at this minus 12, and you're going to divide it by 2. That's all you have to do. So, y minus 6. Easy. Equals 16. So now we're ready to find the center and the radius. Now the center, it's deceptively easy. So the center on this, if you look at it, there's no term next to the x. You know how usually it's like x minus h squared? If there's no term here, we can essentially call that a 0. So the x coordinate for our center is just 0. And the y-coordinate, we're just going to look at this negative 6 and change the sign. The y-coordinate is 6. And now the radius is, of course, 4 units. Because don't forget, this is always the radius squared. So in order to find the actual radius, you take the square root of 16, which is 4. And now we finished that one. Now here's another type of problem you might encounter, which is slightly different from what you've seen, but essentially the exact same process. So step 1, we want to group the x and the y terms together. Here's where the twist comes in. This negative 8y is on the other side of the equation, so we're not just going to write y squared minus 8y, because we have to move this to the other side of the equation. And the way you move it, of course, is adding or subtracting. And in this case, since it's negative, we're going to add 8y to both sides. And now we can group it. So we're going to group the x's together in red. We have x squared minus 6x. And then we have the y squareds in blue. Plus y squared plus 8y. And here's a pro tip for you. This equals 56. You know how usually we have to add or subtract the term? Like step 4 here, we have to add it to the other side to get it away from the x squared and y squared. It's already there. It's already on the right side, so let's just leave it on the right side. instead of bringing it over to the left and then bringing it back to the right. It just seems too complicated. Let's not do that. So, perfect. We got steps 1 and 4 out of the way. So that's kind of a bonus right there. All right, now what we have to do is we're going to divide this middle term here, this b term, negative 6 divided by 2, and then square it. That'll give you negative 3 squared, which is 9. And then for the y one, we do 8 divided by 2, which is 4 squared, and that gives you 16. So on the left side of the equation, we have x squared minus 6x plus 9. And then for the y's, we have plus y squared plus 8y plus 16. And then on the right side of the equation, we have the original 56. Now, of course, remember, we added this 9 and we added this 16 to both sides. So what we need to do is add the 9 on the right side and add the 16 on the right side. So now we've taken care of steps 2 and 3 right there. So we're going to start factoring. So on the left side here, this becomes x something squared plus y something squared equals, and if you add all that up, you're going to get 81, which, ooh, it's a perfect square. That's going to help us. So now, remember, what you want to do is you look at this b term and just divide it by 2 to bring it down here. So negative 6x divided by 2 gives you x minus 3. So we're going to take the negative 6 divided by 2. And then we're going to look at the middle term here, this plus 8, and we're going to divide that by 2. We have y plus 4. So now we're ready to go. Now we just have to read off the center and the radius. So for the center, don't forget you change the signs, which goes to positive 3, negative 4. And the radius, you want to take the square root of 81 because this is the radius squared. So the square root of 81 is, of course, 9. And those are two little variations you might see, but essentially you follow the same exact steps.